Liam Archer stood at the center of a storm. As the alien woman, Zhara, made her shocking demand, the world held its breath. Governments scrambled to respond, diplomats argued, and the global media buzzed with speculation. Yet, amid the chaos, one decision was made. Liam, a young officer with a reputation for calm under pressure, was to be the one chosen to meet Zhara face to face. He wasn't a politician or a high-ranking military commander, but he was a leader in his own right, a skilled strategist, and someone whose courage had been tested in the most dangerous of situations. Now, though, he faced the unknown, an unknown that could very well change the fate of humanity. The tension in the air was palpable as Liam was transported to the landing site, a remote location that had been cordoned off for safety. Zhara's massive ship hovered just above the ground, its dark metallic surface gleaming menacingly. He could feel the weight of the world on his shoulders as he approached the alien craft, his heart racing. There were so many questions that no one could answer. Why had Zhara chosen a human as her prize? What would she do once she had him? Was this an act of war or something else entirely? The uncertainty gnawed at him, but he pushed those thoughts aside, focusing on the task at hand. As Liam arrived at the base of the ship, Zhara descended from her craft, her steps steady and purposeful. Despite the fear that gripped the humans around her, she remained calm, almost serene. She had made no threats, offered no explanations, and yet her presence was enough to send ripples of dread through the crowd. Liam squared his shoulders, trying to keep his nerves in check. He knew this was not the time to show fear. Zhara's gaze swept over him, and for a moment, their eyes locked. The weight of her stare was unnerving, but Liam held his ground. She seemed to study him for a moment before speaking in a voice that was clear and commanding. "I have come for what is mine," she declared. "A human. I have chosen you." Liam's stomach churned. He had heard rumors of alien races demanding human subjects before, but he had never imagined it would be him. Why him? Why not someone else? He felt a surge of uncertainty, but his training kicked in. He was a soldier, after all, and soldiers didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, meeting Zhara's gaze. "I'm not sure what you mean by prize," Liam said, trying to keep his voice steady. "But if this is some kind of threat to humanity, you'll have to deal with more than just me." Zhara's expression didn't change. She was unbothered, almost amused by his response. "I do not seek to harm you," she said, her voice calm yet somehow unsettling. "I seek something more, something your people can offer, something I have longed for." Liam's mind raced. What could she want? And why him? His heart pounded in his chest as the weight of the situation began to sink in. The fate of humanity might rest on his next move. What he had assumed was a mere diplomatic mission had suddenly turned into something far more complex and dangerous. The night sky over Earth was quiet, but the silence was broken by the arrival of something extraordinary. A massive ship, unlike anything humanity had ever seen, entered Earth's atmosphere, its sleek, metallic surface gleaming under the stars. It was a craft that defied all known technology, a marvel of engineering that made human ships seem like toys by comparison. The world watched in shock and awe as it descended slowly, its destination unknown, its purpose unclear. What could an alien race possibly want on Earth? Panic spread across the globe, and governments scrambled to respond, but no one knew what to expect. At the center of this chaos was Zhara, an alien woman whose presence exuded authority. She was tall, her body adorned in glowing armor that seemed to pulse with an energy of its own. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the crowd of humans below her, sizing them up with a gaze that seemed to pierce through them. She stepped out of her ship onto the Earth's soil with a calm and confident stride, a striking figure against the backdrop of a world in turmoil. The alien had come for a specific purpose, and she made no attempt to hide it. The world's leaders watched in disbelief as she made her declaration. She wanted a human as her prize. No one understood why, Why would an advanced alien race demand a human? And what did she mean by prize? Theories began to swirl. Was it a form of conquest? Some speculated that she was here to conquer humanity, to take them as slaves or perhaps to wipe them out entirely. Others thought it might be some kind of strange game or test. But whatever the reason, Jera made it clear that she was not leaving without what she wanted. Among the people chosen to meet the alien was Liam Archer, a young, skilled officer who had gained a reputation for his quick thinking and level-headedness in dangerous situations. He was not a leader of armies or a high-ranking diplomat, but the governments of Earth, desperate to find someone to face Jera, turned to him. Liam was chosen to speak to her, to confront this alien demand head-on. As he stood before the towering figure of Jera, he felt a wave of unease wash over him. What did she see in him? Why was he, of all people, selected to face her? Jera stood tall, her expression unreadable. The Earthlings had never seen an alien quite like her. She radiated power, but there was an unsettling calmness to her demeanor. "I have come to claim my prize," she stated, her voice strong and unwavering. "A human, chosen by me. No one shall question this demand." Liam stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to say or do. The weight of the moment pressed down on him, but he knew one thing for certain. Humanity was at a crossroads. What could a single human offer to an alien species that was so powerful, so advanced? Why had she come for him? The situation had taken an unexpected turn. Liam Archer had come to face Jera, the alien woman who had demanded a human as her prize, but he never could have imagined what awaited him. He had thought he was walking into a confrontation, a test of human strength, perhaps, or a desperate attempt to negotiate peace. What he didn't know was that Jera's demand had nothing to do with war, conquest, or aggression. In fact, her purpose was far more complex and far more surprising. As Jera stood before him, her eyes no longer carried the same cold authority they had when she first arrived. Instead, there was something softer in her gaze, a sense of curiosity, maybe even hope. She had made no threats, and her actions, though commanding, hadn't been violent. It was clear that there was a deeper reason for her visit, one that went beyond anything Liam could have expected. Jera's voice broke the silence between them, her tone now almost gentle, yet filled with undeniable conviction. "I did not come here for what you think I came for," she said, her voice steady but calm. "Your people have been watching us for years, and we have been watching you. There is something about humans, something I need." Liam felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had prepared himself for a confrontation. But this was something else entirely. Jera's words didn't make sense. What could humans possibly offer an alien race as powerful as hers? What could they have that was of any value to her? He tried to steady his breath, his mind racing. "What are you talking about?" he asked, still confused but trying to keep his composure. "What do you need from us?" Jera looked at him with an intensity that made him feel both vulnerable and exposed. "My species," she began, her words carefully chosen, "is on the brink of extinction. We have lost something vital, something that has sustained us for centuries. We are capable of great things, of unimaginable achievements, but we have lost the most important thing of all, the ability to connect, to feel, to care, to create." Liam's confusion only deepened. "What do you mean? Why are you telling me this?" "We have become a hollow people," Jera explained, her gaze never wavering. "Our society, once vibrant and powerful, has turned into something devoid of meaning. We've spent too long focusing on advancement, on technology, on power. And now we find ourselves at the edge of the abyss. The one thing we lack is the one thing that humans have in abundance: emotional depth." The weight of her words settled heavily on Liam. He had expected to be taken captive, to be forced into something he didn't understand. But this was something different. Jera's people, despite their advanced technology, lacked the very thing that made humans so unique: their capacity for emotional connection, love, creativity, and empathy. The realization stunned him. Jera's gaze softened, and she stepped closer, her tone almost pleading. I came here because I believe that the bond we humans have with one another, your relationships, your ability to feel, to create, is the key to saving my species. I need a human, someone whose heart and spirit are as strong as the will to survive. Liam stood frozen, his mind trying to process everything she had just said. He hadn't expected this. No one had. What he thought was a demand for conquest was, in fact, a desperate plea for help. And for the first time, he realized that the fate of not just one species, but two, might now rest on his shoulders. Liam Archer stood before Jara, his mind whirling with everything she had just revealed. The weight of her words settled heavily on his shoulders. This alien woman, whom he had expected to be a conqueror, was not here to destroy humanity. She was here to beg for their help. Jera's race had achieved great things, but in doing so, they had lost something essential. The ability to connect emotionally, the very thing that made humans unique. Now she was looking to him for answers, not as a prisoner, but as a potential savior. But there was still so much Liam didn't understand. Why him? Why had she chosen a simple human soldier to save her entire species? The confusion in his mind began to swirl into frustration. He had been thrust into a situation beyond his comprehension, and the pressure was mounting. The fate of an entire alien race, perhaps even the future of humanity's relationships with alien species, seemed to rest on his shoulders. He cleared his throat, trying to shake off his unease. I still don't understand. Why me? Why not someone else? I'm just one person, Jara. His voice was steady, but inside, his mind was racing. What makes you think I have the answers you need? Jara's expression softened, and she took a slow step forward, her eyes locked on his. It's not just about you, Liam. It's about what you represent. Humans are not just survivors, they are creators. You feel things deeply. You love. You grieve. You dream. These emotions, these bonds you form, are what have kept your species alive. My people, we are disconnected from all of that. We've become hollow shells, lost in a world where everything is calculated, controlled. Liam found himself absorbing her words. The world she described sounded alien, even though it was right in front of him. A society that valued logic and advancement, but at the cost of connection, had led Jera's people to the brink of extinction. It was something he had never considered, something he couldn't begin to imagine. As a human, emotions were part of everything he did, his choices, his motivations, his dreams. But the idea that a whole species could lose that they could operate without it, seemed impossible. I don't know if I can help you, Liam said, his voice more uncertain than he wanted to admit. I'm just one person, and I'm not even sure how I could possibly show you what humanity is capable of. What if you're asking for something that's just not possible? Jera tilted her head slightly, her expression both serious and vulnerable. You don't have to show me everything, Liam. You only need to help me understand. Help me understand how humans keep going, even when everything is stacked against them. Help me see the strength that I've been blind to. Liam was silent for a moment, the weight of her request sinking in. He was being asked to bridge the impossible gap between their two worlds, between two species who had lived in such vastly different ways. He wasn't sure how he could do it, but something deep inside him told him that he had to try. For Jara, and for the future of both their worlds. Finally, he spoke, his voice steady but filled with determination. All right, I'll help you, but it's not going to be easy, and I don't know what's going to happen. But I'll try. For both of us. Jara's eyes gleamed with something he hadn't seen before. Hope. The journey ahead would be difficult, but for the first time, Liam could see a path ahead. And he wasn't sure where it would lead, but he knew that the connection they needed could be more powerful than either of them had ever imagined. As Liam Archer spent more time with Jara, the complexities of her request began to unfold in unexpected ways. What had started as a mission of confusion and uncertainty was quickly becoming something deeper, something far more meaningful. He was beginning to realize that her people's need for emotional connection wasn't just a matter of survival. It was a matter of rediscovery. For centuries, Jara's species had lived without the depth of feeling that humans took for granted. Their great technological advancements, their power, their conquests, none of it had prepared them for the emptiness that had slowly crept into their society. And now, Jara was asking him to teach her something humanity had almost forgotten to appreciate: the power of emotional bonds. One evening, after a day spent talking about their worlds, Jara seemed to hesitate. Her usual calm, commanding presence was replaced with an almost vulnerable silence. Liam noticed the change immediately. She had never been one to share her doubts, yet there she stood, as if the weight of her people's fate had become too much for her to carry alone. He could see it in her eyes. There was something she wasn't saying. "What is it, Jara?" Liam asked, his voice gentle. "What's really at the heart of all this?" Jara took a deep breath, clearly conflicted. "I've been trained to lead my people, to think logically, to guide them to power and prosperity. I never once questioned that path. But somewhere along the way, I lost the connection to what truly matters. I lost touch with the emotions that should have anchored us. Our society, it became so focused on survival, on intellect, that we forgot how to truly live. My people, they need something more than just survival." Liam listened closely, sensing that there was more to her words. "You're talking about something beyond just feeling. You're talking about the human experience, right?" Jara's eyes softened. "Yes," she admitted. "That's what I mean. For us, emotions are a foreign concept, something we once had but abandoned in the pursuit of better. We turned away from love, from loss, from creativity. In our search for control, we lost our hearts." Liam felt a pang of sadness. It was hard to imagine living without the depth of feeling that defined so much of what it meant to be human. The love for family, the passion for purpose, the pain of loss. These were the very things that made humans resilient, gave them the strength to face the darkest of times. Without them, what would a species have left? "And you think," Liam said carefully, "that humans can give your people that connection again?" Jara nodded, her voice quieter now, almost wistful. "I've seen it in you, Liam. Your ability to form bonds, your strength and vulnerability. It's something my people no longer understand. I need to know what it feels like to truly connect with another being, to feel something that goes beyond logic and strategy." Liam was silent for a moment, taking in her words. He had always known that humanity's strength came from its ability to love, to empathize, to create. But hearing Jara's admission made him realize just how much they took for granted. To be asked to teach an alien species something so profoundly human, something so personal, was a daunting task. But it was also an opportunity to give Jara's people something that they desperately needed, something that might save them, a chance to change the course of their future. "I'll help you, Jara," Liam said finally, his voice filled with resolve. "I'll help you understand what it means to feel, to connect. But we're going to have to take it slow. It's not something that can be learned in a day." Jara's eyes glimmered with gratitude. "I understand. But with you, Liam, I believe it's possible." And for the first time since arriving on her planet, Liam felt like he was truly standing at the precipice of something important, something bigger than he had ever imagined. The days that followed were a mix of uncertainty and hope. Liam Archer had agreed to help Jara, to teach her the emotions and connections that were second nature to humans, but the task was far from easy. There were moments when Liam wasn't sure if they were making any progress at all. Jara, despite her intelligence and strength, struggled to grasp the simple concept of emotional bonds. She was used to thinking in terms of logic and efficiency, her whole life shaped by the cold precision of her people's technology and strategies. And yet here she was, trying to understand something that didn't make sense to her. a concept that wasn't quantifiable, a force that couldn't be measured. One evening, after a long day of conversation, Jera stood by the window of the quarters Liam had been given on her ship, staring out into the endless stars. The silence between them was thick, the weight of her people's situation pressing down on both of them. The stars outside were distant, beautiful, but unreachable. Much like her race had become, Jera thought, far removed from the things that truly mattered. Do you ever wonder what it's like to be connected to someone? Jera asked, her voice almost hesitant, a tone Liam hadn't heard from her before. He was startled by the vulnerability in her voice, the cracks in her typically unshakable composure. Liam turned to face her, his brow furrowing. I guess I'd never really thought about it, he said slowly. It's just part of who we are. Humans, we form bonds without thinking. We love, we lose, we grow. It's what makes us strong. Jera sighed, a sound full of frustration and longing. I don't understand. How do you trust someone when there's no guarantee? How can you be vulnerable like that? Liam felt a twinge of sympathy. He knew what it was like to face uncertainty, to lose something or someone, but Jera's struggle was different. She wasn't just dealing with the pain of personal loss. She was battling an entire culture's loss, the inability to feel, to connect, to experience life with depth. Vulnerability isn't a weakness, Jera, Liam said, stepping closer to her. It's what makes us human. It's what gives us courage. It's how we grow. If we closed ourselves off, if we never allowed ourselves to feel, then we'd never learn, we'd never change. And that's when we'd truly be lost. Jera turned to him, her golden eyes filled with a mixture of confusion and something else, perhaps hope. But how do you allow yourself to be vulnerable when it's so dangerous? When it hurts? Liam took a deep breath, trying to put into words something that he himself had struggled with for years. You learn that pain doesn't last forever. And even when it does, you learn how to carry it. The strength isn't in avoiding pain, it's in facing it together. When you have someone to share that with, it makes all the difference. Jera was silent for a long time, absorbing his words. Finally, she spoke, her voice quieter than before. I think I'm starting to understand, just a little bit. It's hard, but I want to understand more. Liam smiled slightly. It won't happen overnight, but we can take it one step at a time. For the first time since their conversations began, Jera's posture relaxed, her usual tension easing just a little. They stood there together, no longer just an alien and a human, but two individuals who were beginning to understand each other in ways they hadn't before. They both knew that the journey ahead would be long and challenging, but in that moment, it felt like the first real step towards something important, towards something that could save not only Jera's species, but also create a deeper bond between two very different worlds. As Liam Archer and Jera spent more time together, their relationship began to shift. What had started as a mission of survival was slowly turning into something far more complex. Liam had agreed to help Jera understand the emotional connections that defined humanity, but it hadn't been easy. Each step forward seemed like a monumental achievement, and yet the journey ahead was long and uncertain. But there was something about Jera's determination, something about her willingness to change, that kept him going. Jera, for all her strength and intelligence, was beginning to grasp the weight of the emotions she had never truly understood. Each day, she grew more open, more vulnerable, and with that vulnerability came a kind of strength that neither she nor Liam had anticipated. The cold, calculated alien warrior who had once arrived demanding a human as her prize was slowly revealing a side of herself that no one had seen. And in return, Liam was discovering a deep respect for her, something that had never existed when their journey first began. One afternoon, as they sat together in the quiet of the ship's lounge, Jera turned to Liam with an expression of quiet determination. The silence between them was no longer uncomfortable. It was comfortable, almost familiar. I've been thinking a lot about what you've said, Jera began, her voice uncharacteristically soft. About vulnerability. about being willing to open yourself up to others. And I've come to realize something." She paused, her golden eyes meeting his. "For so long, I thought strength came from control, from keeping things within. But now, I see that real strength comes from letting go, from being able to trust others, even when you don't have all the answers." Liam couldn't help but smile, a sense of pride welling up inside him. Jera had come so far since their first meeting, when she had been nothing more than a mysterious alien, demanding a human as a prize. Now she was evolving into someone he could admire. "You're right," Liam said, his voice filled with a warmth he hadn't intended to show. "Real strength is in knowing when to let others in. And that's something I think we all have to learn, whether we're human or not." Jara nodded thoughtfully, taking in his words. "I never thought I would understand what it meant to rely on others, to share your burdens," she admitted. "I was taught that independence was the highest form of strength. But now, I see that I was wrong. True strength lies in connection, in caring for others, and allowing them to care for you." Liam looked at her, really looked at her, and saw how far she had come. She wasn't just a ruler of a distant alien world anymore. She was someone who was learning to embrace her emotions, someone who was willing to admit her weaknesses, and in doing so was becoming stronger than she had ever been. In that moment, Liam realized that they were no longer just a human and an alien. They were allies. They had crossed the line from strangers to partners to something even more. The connection they had formed, though unconventional, was now one of mutual respect and understanding. "It's not easy," Liam said with a slight smile, "but you're doing it. And that's what matters. You've already come a long way, Jera." Jera smiled back, her face softer than it had ever been before. "And I couldn't have done it without you, Liam. Thank you." As they sat together, the weight of their journey ahead seemed less daunting. There was still much to learn, and many challenges yet to face. But for the first time since meeting Jara, Liam truly believed that they were not just two different species. They were two individuals, connected by something that transcended their differences, something that could change everything for both of their worlds. The days had turned into weeks, and Liam Archer and Jera found themselves standing at the edge of something new, something that neither of them had expected. What began as a mission of survival, a desperate plea for help from an alien species on the brink of extinction, had evolved into something more profound. They had crossed boundaries, not just of space and species, but of understanding and trust. And now the bond they shared, one forged in the heat of struggle, was beginning to change the course of their futures in ways neither could have predicted. Jara had made progress. The emotional connection she had once struggled to understand had now become a source of strength. She no longer saw vulnerability as a weakness, but as a power that could unite, that could heal. She had learned from Liam, not just about humanity, but about the true meaning of connection. And with every lesson, every conversation, she felt something shift inside her, something she had thought was lost forever, hope. But now there was another challenge to face. Jarvis people, though still struggling, had begun to show signs of recovery. Their genetic makeup had started to regenerate, and their emotional capabilities, once stifled, had begun to flourish. But the real test would be the acceptance of this new way of living, a way that valued emotional bonds and cooperation over control and individualism. Jarvis' species had lived for so long in a state of detached power, and changing that mindset was no simple task. The harder task would be convincing her own people to embrace these changes. Liam, too, had changed. He had come to understand Jarvis' people better than he had ever imagined. He had seen the cracks in their society, the quiet despair that had grown within them, and he now saw how much potential lay in the connections that humans had naturally formed. Helping Jarvis' people had become more than a mission. It had become a calling. He couldn't turn back now, not when so many lives were depending on the lessons they had learned together. One evening, as they stood side by side on the edge of Jarvis' ship, looking out at the distant stars, the silence between them felt different. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of promise. Jara, her gaze fixed on the horizon, spoke softly. "Liam," she said, her voice steady but filled with a sense of quiet resolve. "I've been thinking a lot about the future, about my people, and about Earth. I don't think we can go back to the way things were, not for either of us. What we've learned together, it's changed everything." Liam turned to her, his heart swelling with an understanding that only a few months ago he never would have expected. "I agree. The future is different now for both our worlds. But I think it can be better." Jara smiled, a rare, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "It's a new beginning, isn't it?" Liam nodded. "A new beginning, and we have the chance to make it something worth fighting for." As they stood there, shoulder to shoulder, the stars above them seemed a little brighter, as though the universe itself was watching, waiting for them to make their next move. The road ahead would not be easy, and they both knew there would be challenges ahead. But they also knew one thing for certain. Together, they had the strength to face whatever came next. The future wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about hope, about rebuilding, about creating a new world where connection and understanding were the foundation. And that was something worth fighting for. The transformation of Liam Archer and Jara had been nothing short of extraordinary. From a meeting born of confusion and suspicion, they had forged an unbreakable bond that now stood as the key to a new future, not just for their species, but for the entire galaxy. Their journey together had challenged their beliefs, their strengths, and their weaknesses. They had both grown, evolved in ways they hadn't expected. And now, as they faced the next chapter, the true depth of their connection was clear. It wasn't just the survival of Jara's species that rested in their hands. It was the survival of something much more important, the ability to feel, to care, to connect. Months had passed since that first fateful meeting. Jara's people were beginning to show signs of true recovery. The emotional barriers that had once held them back were slowly crumbling as they embraced the lessons of vulnerability, trust, and community. Jara had become a leader who understood the importance of not just strength, but unity. She had transformed from the powerful, distant warrior who had once demanded a human as her prize into a queen who valued the very things she had never known she needed: emotional bonds. Liam, too, had been changed. His mission had begun as a simple act of diplomacy, but it had grown into something far deeper. Through his connection with Jara, he had come to appreciate the complexities of humanity, the strength that lay in their ability to adapt, to love, and to persevere. He had once thought his world was ordinary, but now he saw how extraordinary humans were. They were survivors, creators, and dreamers, traits that, when shared with another species, could help rebuild what had been lost. Now, standing together on the balcony of Jara's ship, overlooking the peaceful landscape of her world, they'd both felt a sense of fulfillment. The mission was far from over, but it was no longer a battle for survival. It was a fight for a future where different species could learn from one another, where emotions weren't feared, but celebrated. "It's hard to believe how far we've come," Liam said, looking at the horizon. He had never imagined that the simple act of sharing a human connection would lead to this, a chance to reshape the destiny of not just two species, but perhaps many more. Jara stood next to him, her gaze soft but determined. "I never thought I would find peace in something so human, but now I can't imagine my people without it, without the emotions that drive us, the bonds that tie us together. They make us stronger, not weaker." Liam nodded, his heart swelling with pride. "We've shown that survival isn't just about physical strength. It's about the heart, and that's something that can never be taken from us." Jara's expression softened, and she placed a hand on Liam's shoulder. "You've taught me more than you know, Liam, and for that, I am forever grateful." Together, they stood, watching the stars above, knowing that their shared journey had only just begun. The future was uncertain, But the one thing they knew for sure was that they had created something that would outlast both of them. It was a legacy of connection, of understanding, of shared strength, and that, more than anything, was the most powerful force in the universe.